but ultimately the parents of the couple were the ones who actually submitted the payment. My contract was with the couple. Therefore, they claimed that it was a fraudulent charge due to the fact that the mother's credit card was used instead of a credit card in the name of the client.
Hey everybody, this is Eddie Babbage, founder, CEO of Timeline Genius, your host here of the Wedding Industry Insider Podcast, and I'm here with Fallon Carter. Fallon is the founder and creative director of Fallon Carter Events, an event production company that designs intentional, intimate destination experiences. She is also the host of the Betches Bride podcast, which everybody should check out. And she has over 11 years of experience in our beloved wedding industry. Fallon, thank you so much for taking time to be here and to do this interview with me.
Eddie, thank you so much for having me on. I cannot wait to get started.
Me too. I was seriously excited about this, and I'm sure I told you in the pre-interview, I'm very transparent. Folks should
Mhm.
know that you are one of the very early relationships that I was able to build in our wedding industry. People that know the Timeline Genius story know that I didn't come from the wedding industry. I just started, looking for a problem to solve, and my wife, who did all the planning for our wedding, suggested, if you want to help somebody, go talk to wedding planners. And sure enough, I started talking to wedding planners, and you were one of those people, and my question was like, what's the biggest problem in your business? You were one of those people that took time to talk to me at a time when, yeah, I had no industry, presence or footprint, no company. I remember being here in New York, going up and having an amazing soul food brunch. I still legendary Red Rooster, right?
I
Like,
still
oh,
remember.
so good. That was amazing. You provided, and again, I'll circle back to this later, but you provided um, advice and feedback that very honestly still is in my brain as we develop new features, has been in my brain. I still remember the Jarvis analogy. You probably don't. I don't even know if you remember, but like the Iron Man, you're like, we have such a stressful job. I just want Jarvis on my anyway. I'm gonna all of that. I just want people to know that you're just an awesome person,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, it's really a treat to have you here. So to
Thank
give
you.
people a preview, Fallon, what we talked about in the pre-interview and what we're going to share here is under the heading of refining your foundation. Everything from goal setting, legal, finance, pricing. There are all these things that we kind of talked about as being like the foundation for a solid wedding planning business. And as we all know, if you don't have a solid foundation, you don't want to be trying to build a big building on a shaky foundation. But
Mhm.
before we get to that, can you please, Fallon, just give people a little bit more of an introduction to you and your background to tell us how you got to be where you currently are in the industry?
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm missing our Harlem brunches for sure. And I love the concept of Timeline Genius from Jump Street. I was like, if he's going to do this, this is going to be really, really good. And you did it. So thank you for all of your contributions to the wedding industry. We were grateful, very grateful. So I'm Fallon Carter. I started my business in New York when I was a little 23 years old, fresh out of college. I'd worked one job and then I was like, I'm going to be a wedding planner. But I fell into the industry by helping another friend do her wedding. I came into this industry like you. I had no kind of background in the space, but it felt right. And it felt like a place where I could kind of thrive and shine. Um, yeah, so I left a legal aspirations and I came into planning. And 11 years later, I'm still here, still love it. Don't know why I'm crazy, but it's been a great ride.
That's awesome, Fallon. Um, let's before we kind of get into this question of like how to refine one's foundation as a wedding planner, I want to just go a little more into your story.
Hmm.
Can you just tell listeners here, you've been in the trenches now and we've been connected now for over a decade. Can you tell just transparently, honestly, about um, one of the biggest lessons that you've learned through years of hard work and experience in this industry?
Um, I'm like, where do I there's so many to just hone in
Yeah,
on
sure.
one. I would say one important lesson that I've learned is to learn to trust yourself. I think
Mm,
one thing we are often seeking is validation, permission, before making a decision. We're like, I need a strategist. I need someone to say that this is a good idea. And oftentimes we know inherently what's good for us and what's bad for us. And I think I wish I would have trusted my intuition more sometimes as like I look back. Not that I ever regret anything because every lesson is
yeah.
extremely important and valuable, but I wish I had trusted myself to take some bolder moves when I could.
We talked. I love that, Colin, and maybe we're already kind of hitting this, but I want to go a little further down this rabbit hole. In the pre-interview, we stumbled on this sort of like hypothetical of like, what if, Fallon at the start of your wedding planning career could sit down and have brunch with Fallon today, and for both of us, it's like, wow, that's a really powerful thing. Obviously, it's not possible yet, but like,
Not yet.
yeah, my son's convinced he's going to make a time machine. So,
I'm
like,
here for it. Let me know.
yeah, like so many applications of that idea. But what would you say if I just high level, just a few minutes, like to the extent you're comfortable, kind of putting this out? What would you tell yourself if you got to sit down with Fallon? The same one that I met up with back in the day, at the start of the journey.
I think the saying that everyone probably is familiar with is this is not a race, it's a marathon. Slow down. You're doing too much. You're moving too fast. You're trying to compete with a version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. Be easy.
Mm,
Um, we're so forward, future thinking
mhm,
that we lose so much of what is actually real and the present of life, thinking about what problems might lie ahead of us that sometimes, most of the time, never even unfold.
mm.
So it would be stop, reel it in, sister. You're you're preying on a fear that doesn't even exist, and it won't happen.
So that's really interesting, Palin, like this advice. And it reminds me of the a quote by Mark Twain. I'm paraphrasing her a little, but he's like, "I'm an old man. I've had a lot of problems in my life. Most of them never happened." I love that quote because it really highlights this aspect of human nature where we're always just thinking about the future and what could go wrong, and a lot of times it doesn't. But in your particular case, what were some of these ideas that you were having, if you don't mind my asking here, just about the future that in hindsight you're like, I didn't need to be thinking about that, worrying about that? Like,
I think a lot of it was perception and what
mm,
people were thinking of me, what
mm,
clients were thinking of me.
mm,
I Looking back, I was so young and uh, quite frankly unexperienced. I hadn't
yeah,
had much experience in the wedding space, and especially the weddings I was kind of thrown in, which, by the grace of God were amazing, but I felt still the imposter syndrome of like, can I actually pull this off? And I the doubt reigned on me and the fear reigned on me. But ultimately, I was always producing successful events. But I constantly was thinking, I'm not good enough. People think this is terrible, overly critical. And I think that's what led to like, if I could take it back, I'd be like, they all turned out beautiful and your clients loved it and they were happy with you. Where did you get this idea that they hated you? It's like, so it's like we always are thinking about how is this tent going to fall over? Is the caterer going to show up? Oh, it's like there's so many
yeah,
ways that we can worry
yeah.
about things that don't happen.
Yeah, especially with this job, right? Like,
Yeah.
because there are so many things that could go wrong and there are no do-overs,
Nope.
How do you today, how have you, because I can sense that like this is an issue that you've made a lot of progress on. Like, how do you deal with that inner critic and the inner worry and all of that stuff today more in a more healthy and effective way than you did, back in the day?
I mean, meditation, of course, has become a natural.
Mm,
But at the same time, it's knowing your truth and reading your receipts, but it's also having a really dope squad. And I think I put that even in one of the things to honor in your foundation is having people who can say like, "Girl, you are better than that," or
Yeah.
do you want me to remind you who you are? Because sometimes you
Yeah.
need a reminder of how dope you are. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just can't do it yourself. You need others to root for you.
I love that. So, Fallon, what we talked about in the pre-interview, and I kind of teased it a little already at the top of this interview, is this notion of refining your foundation, right? And I've had individual podcast episodes where I've kind of gone deeply into various topics that we, talked about or touched on: pricing, finances, whatever. What I thought we could do here that's unique is a more bird's eye view,
Mm.
holistic assessment of your foundation. And to kind of kick this off, what I often, and I mentioned this to you, if I came to you and I said, Fallon, I've been doing this wedding planning, for years now, 4 or 5 years, say, and it's just hard. It's hard work. I'm not making the money that I want necessarily. I'm working harder than I want, whatever. I just
Mm.
want to feel like I'm more in control of my business and just help me, right? If we had an
Hmm.
hour or so to help me in that, like, tell me now, I guess what you said in the pre, what would you do to kind of start the process of helping me as much as you could?
Yeah, the first thing I would probably say is let's assess your goals and what are you actually striving for. And I always give the analogy that, running a business is kind of like scaling a mountain. And sometimes we're so focused on how big the mountain is that sometimes you just need to take the first step. And so you might be thinking too big, too broad, too long term, and you're not focused on the short term. And when you do those short term goals and you kind of get little wins, then your confidence builds. You feel more excited again because you actually feel like you're making treadway, you're getting somewhere. And I would also inquire about like, what don't you want to be doing anymore? I think I'm kind of getting to a place of like, I'm really trying to refine the services we offer, and the type of planner I really want to become, just because I'm like, I am working a little too hard. I am trying to do too many things that I could potentially outsource or, have another company potentially either white label for me or come in and help do it. So it's really assessing what are your strengths and what are your goals right now, and let's identify how we can have you do more of the things you're really really good at, and let's take some baby steps towards your successes.
I love that, Fallon. And there's something that has kept, like, it keeps coming up in our conversation, which is this notion of kind of patience and perseverance and the sort of expectations and the vision and what are other
Mm,
people thinking. And it just really resonates with me, Fallon, that, like, and I've had 3 companies, as in my entrepreneurial career. And I will say, I mean, Timeline Genius, case in point, I've been doing it now for over 10 years. And there's this tendency to think at the outset that things are just like, okay, after 1 year, I'm going to be, and like, and when you have that mindset, and we all know, like, but yet we still have that sort of conscious or subconscious expectation, when in reality it's a grind, right? Like, in reality it takes time to build. And I feel like with that mindset we can almost lose sight of
mm,
the tremendous progress that we have made over
mm-hmm,
like a 3 year period or whatever, because we're measuring ourselves up against this other kind of fiction.
mm-hmm.
Does that resonate with you?
100%. And I think
um
it's even like, my word for the year is perspective. And it's like sometimes you need to turn around to see how far you've come. And a lot, like I said, we're
mm,
always so future focused, like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And it's sometimes we might need to just change where there is and identify, if you look at it differently, you're now in a place that you've been praying for. You're now at a place that someone else wishes they could be. And once
yes.
you are like appreciative of that, you have a whole different perspective on your business and you treat it differently. You show up differently. And when you
Mm.
act that way, everything else changes in front of you.
That's really powerful, Fallon. I almost think it's like, there's some aspect of human nature that we have to kind of fight against, which
Mm.
is when we have something, we tend to take it for granted. Like, I don't know about you, but I mean, we don't walk around all day saying, thank goodness, I'm not in the ER right now. Like, right? Or thank goodness I woke up today. I mean, I try to say that, when I say it every morning when I pray, but to be mindful of that every second of the day, like, we're not.
It's
Like, we
hard.
tend to have these blessings. And I think growth in business, it happens gradually. And at each point along the way, you get kind of acclimated to like, well, of course, this is like where I am now. And you don't realize, well, this is exactly what you're saying. Like a few years ago, like this is where I was hoping to be. And it's not easy to get here. And other people have tried and not reached this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really good. I guess I just encourage everybody to kind of riff off what you're saying and just take a minute, look behind you, look at the progress, recalibrate. Um,
Yeah.
when we're talking about refining your foundation, so goal setting, we just kind of touched on. I love that. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there, right? Like you should have, you're just going to end up anywhere, right? Um, and that's just kind of a simple exercise, right, Fallon, of just sitting quietly, and just thinking like, where do I want to be 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, like
Mm-hmm.
having intentional, right?
Yep.
Um, we also talked about finances going into your foundation. Like, tell me a little bit about, and you've alluded to this, like, talk to me a little bit about the importance of finances and what somebody should do with respect to their finances to get a solid foundation.
Yeah. So it's like after you've done some goal setting, then you'll have to probably align what financially is it going to take for you to get those goals to actually happen, to be created. And finances are so important when you're thinking of scaling or trying to grow to a place, just because it's, well, you're going to need revenue to get there. But generally, at this point, you're probably going to need team members. You're probably going to need to start considering people to help you, especially when you're identifying your strengths, and maybe your weaknesses are creating timelines, or your weaknesses are my maybe more of the minutia. You're like, I need someone who can focus on that. The financial side is going to help you, one, see if you're going to need to change pricing that you present to clients so that you're able to grow your business appropriately. But really, it's really understanding, how much does your business cost you right now? Like, truly and honestly, do you actually know all the subscriptions, all of the micro details that it takes to run your business? And something I've been recently doing is tracking my time when I'm working on specific client details. How long does it take me to make a design deck? Really? Now, after 11 years, how long does it take me to find rentals? How long does it actually take me on client calls and emails? And when you look at how much time you're spending on something, you can identify your pricing to coincide with exactly the service and the time that you're giving. And then outsourcing things that you no longer need to be doing. It's like all of these, once you identify these things, then they will equally go to, how much financing do I need to have? And having a bookkeeper is probably one of the first things I would also say. If you do not have one right now, get one, because they will help you see your money a lot clearer. They're worth every investment. And they will also allow you to stay compliant, which we can talk about as far as legally, like making sure your taxes are done on time and someone else is doing them, so you can actually spend the time focusing on your clients and creating impeccable events.
I love that, Fallon. And how, like, in terms of because there are kind of these pillars of a business, and the finance piece of it is clearly like one of the pillars of your business. I don't know anybody that got into wedding planning because they are like,
I want to be a multimillionaire.
retired, recovering investment bankers, like, um, so how far do you go down that sort of path of like, well, what does your sort of financial system look like? I mean, are you on a monthly basis, looking at, these are the expenses for the month and projecting forward? Like for you, like in your business, how do you handle this sort of financial piece?
So I do have a bookkeeper who manages all of those details, and I hired an admin, a virtual one, who helped me create kind of like my own internal cash flow tracker. And
Great.
so
Great.
I go in, I actually have Finance Friday. I go in every Friday and I just go through I use Dubsado as my tracking system for clients and invoicing. So I just go through invoices. I identify exactly when next payments are due. I schedule automatic reminders to be sent, make sure QuickBook is syncing with everything. But it's something I like to do weekly just so I can get a handle on things, because miscellaneous client trips will come up and I just want to make sure, is everything allocated right? So I look at my money like a hawk, just because I've had some very expensive lessons that I wasn't paying attention appropriately, and I never want that to happen again. I've had bookkeepers manage it without me looking at it, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I have the bookkeeper, but I look at it too, so that way when if anything were to happen, I know exactly where I stand financially.
I love that. That's such an important point, Fallon. Both of them. You should have a bookkeeper, but also there should be oversight. You can't fully just relinquish and just step away and not be looking at the money, right?
Yeah.
Because like it's such an important business. And I love Finance Fridays. Did you make Finance Fridays up? Like I've
I
never heard
did.
that.
I do finance
Love
and
it.
compliant Fridays. So anything contract, anything, if I need to talk to my lawyer about something, Fridays are that day to just like clean house.
Love it. And what a perfect segue. Um, there are other, podcast interviews I've done, like with Michelle Loretta, like, with, accountants and stuff to really like drill into the finance piece here. And we can post that in the show notes. But again, I want people to kind of leave here with that holistic sense because
Yeah.
maybe somebody's like, look, my financial house is in order, but this other topic that I'm segueing to now, which is legal compliance, haven't, that house is a hot mess, right? So um, it's interesting, and they do kind of intersect. I think
Mm.
that's a natural next step here to talk about in your foundation. Talk to me a little about legal compliance, the importance of it, and what you do to kind of run a tight ship there.
Yeah, so I recently moved. I moved to LA for a year and now I'm back to DC. So
Mhm.
I've had some details and I also work with clients kind of all over the country. So compliance to me is very important because my business moves, I move, and I always want to make sure wherever I'm doing business I'm stable. So I work with a lawyer. I work with Kumbi and Leah at Otterberg Law. I love them. But essentially, every time I experience something new from a client that I'm like, I probably should have had this identified in a contract or a form or something, I send it over to them. They review it and they give me guidance, and we kind of update terms or legal terms. So it's been really, really helpful to work with a lawyer, especially because I mean, I haven't gotten into lawsuits literally, but there have been issues with clients and chargebacks and all these other things that have been really, really painful that identify. I want to make sure I have like a super ironclad contract, period.
I love that. Yeah, and you may know I'm a recovering lawyer. Like I practiced corporate law for a few years and did the whole law school thing. I'm sure we talked about that way back in the
Yeah.
day. But do you mind sharing what's we talked about this, right? Like there are two ways you can learn. Like one way you can learn from
Hmm.
others through listening to a podcast, reading a book, or sitting down with somebody and getting some, advice, or you can learn through
The
experience.
hard
And
way.
experience can be effective. Yeah, it's the hard way, effective. But can you tell me about any experience you had that just kind of highlights the importance of like focusing on this legal compliance, the legal part of your business?
So with the chargeback issue, it actually happened this year and it was not fun at all. The the client and I were just not seeing eye to eye. And there was that we weren't yelling, I will say that.
Right.
But they had different
Mhm.
expectations of how we were to show up. And I had to make it clear that this is how we show up. But
Mhm.
ultimately, the parents of the couple were the ones who actually submitted the payment. My contract was with the couple.
Ah,
Therefore,
ah,
they claimed that it was a fraudulent charge due to the fact that the mother's credit card was used instead of
ah,
a credit card in the name of the client. So
ah,
now we have contracts that are very clear that they are made out to the person who is paying for the services. And everyone
yes.
has to sign the contract to confirm. And we
Ah,
also no longer take credit cards. We now only take bank wires as a form of payment, period.
wow. It's funny. So my 9-year-old over the holidays, we went down to Naples, Florida. My wife's parents, we have
Mhm.
a place down there. It's beautiful. We're down there, but it was like atypically very cold, like 60
Oh.
degrees. But my son had it, and my both of my kids were like, "We're swimming!" Like, damn it, we're swimming. We came to Florida, we're swimming. I was like, guys, it's a little cold. They get out there, and my son gets really sick, gets an earache, and
Oh.
obviously, like, okay, let's get this sorted. We get the antibiotics, but I was like, this is a good time to learn the maxim that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Like, And that's where I think, just from a legal standpoint, just a couple of modifications to that contract are so much easier than the drama of if things go wrong and you're not protected. Um, yeah. So how do
Yep.
you handle, like, so your attorneys, I think for most people they're probably operating in one jurisdiction, like one city, one state. In the case where, somebody like you said your clients are not all in one place, like how do you kind of handle the fact that, a lot of legal issues can be state by state? Like, yeah, how have you kind of factored that in?
So when I moved to California, I worked with a California lawyer. So I had to hire
Okay.
two attorneys, and I worked with her to register to register my business to operate also in the state of California. So basically,
Gotcha.
I just want to
Yeah.
make sure wherever I'm deciding to create a residence, I'm registered to do business there just
Mhm.
in case anything were to happen, and I can cover myself. I'm hopeful that DC is my last move, but my business
Yep.
is definitely still registered in New York. I would love to move to Delaware for these taxes, but I'm gonna. That's my job for the top of this year is to identify where do I want to make now my home base. Is it going to be Maryland, Virginia, or DC? Since I do think this is going to be my primary residence for the next few years.
As a wedding planner, you know how important it is to create detailed wedding day timelines for your events. But creating your timelines can be a tedious and time-consuming job. Until now. Because Timeline Genius lets you create beautiful, detailed wedding day timelines with ease. And it keeps everything you need on the wedding day in one central place. Here's how it works. First, Timeline Genius saves all your clients, vendors, and venues in your Rolodex, so you don't lose time looking for their information. And when you're ready to create a new timeline, you simply enter the key information for your wedding. Click a button, and voila! Timeline Genius magically gives you a customized timeline for your event, where all the details are laid out and the times are calculated for you. From there, you can easily edit your timeline by adding or deleting items, inserting images, changing font styles, and customizing everything to your liking. You can also instantly shift the times for as many items as you want. And when it comes to your clients and vendors, Timeline Genius lets you give them the highest level of service. You can send them tailored timelines, showing only the items they're involved in. And you can collaborate by inviting them to a mobile-friendly, web-based version of the timeline. You can even set text message reminders to automatically go out on the wedding day. And once you've completed your perfect timeline, you can download it or email it out as a beautifully styled PDF. And that's Timeline Genius, a smart software that will help take your wedding planning to the next level. Start your free trial today.
So we talked about, your goals. We talked about finances, which connects to legal compliance.
And I
You
want to,
also talked, yeah, go ahead, hop in. Yeah,
before
please.
we leave legal compliance, I also want to talk about your business entity because I recently just switched over to an S Corp. And I think that's something, again, just to ask a professional about as you're
Yeah,
scaling what that might look like.
yeah,
Is it good for you to stay as an LLC? Is it working for you? Should you consider
yeah.
something else as you take on more employees? And as a solo woman and a single woman, it's like I'm looking to buy a home. So it's like there's some things I needed to do so that I could look more employed, if you will. So just talk to your legal team and your accounting team when it comes to structuring your business moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great point, Fallon. LLC, S Corp, C Corp. You can, and I love the point here. The through line is have an accountant, like a bookkeeper, right? And also, you should have a lawyer. You don't need to necessarily talk to them every day, but somebody, you shouldn't just grab a contract off the internet and say, this is, here's my contract, and
Mm-hmm.
grab your, formation documents for your company off a template. Like, talk to a lawyer, it's worth
Yeah,
it.
a hundred
I mean, it's the
percent.
same thing we tell people about, like, planning your wedding. Like, you can, but like there's so much more expertise that's being brought to bear by
Yeah,
a professional planner.
it's
Same
like
thing for
building
you.
a house without a contractor. Like it's like
Absolutely.
get the people who know this really because they're going to point out like you're missing all of this.
No doubt. No doubt. So yeah, well, thanks for calling that out. That's a really important issue. And in talking about finances, I think one of the most natural things that also leads to, and this again is a whole podcast in and of itself, if we want it to be, is pricing. Because like
Yeah.
those pieces, like at a very just fundamental level, if we're talking foundation here, once you know your goal, right? You're like, this
Mhm.
is where I want to be. You have a sense for like, how much money do I want to make? What are my expenses? Like when you're doing this goal setting and finance, like all of this stuff, I think fits together. You're like, okay, well, now you can start to back into, if this is the revenue, if this is the income that I want, the two inputs are how many clients and what are you getting for each client, which is your pricing. So,
Mhm.
how do you think about pricing, Fallon? I know this is a really sometimes touchy, controversial topic, depending on what opinions people have. But for you, like, how do you approach your pricing?
I mean, I have my standard percentage model. Event management fee is separate. That kind of this is how I roll. And there, of course, those clients who are like, "Oh, I don't know. I really want to pay a flat fee." And you're like, "Okay, well, I'll make something that says flat fee for you, but in the contract it'll read the moment that you exceed your budget, I'll charge you on percentage." So it's really
Mm,
for me it's like I have to identify who I'm talking to and if I want to really book this client.
mhm.
But something that's been really important to me this year, again, like you're saying, is as I'm maturing and I really want to have more joy and I really want to do a little less work, I'm really focusing on how do I bring on more creative partners that can help me do these projects better. So that way I don't have to own every single element of it. And that's changed my pricing because it's allowed me to see, oh, I'm going to have to hire a rendering person. So I'm probably going to need to pack that into this price. I'm going to need to hire probably a travel agent to help me do all the research for all these venues. So it's this year has been, or even last year has been a time where I was like, I felt overworked. I felt like I was overextending myself, and I hired a lot of people that didn't have the experience level I needed. Now I want to hire someone that has maybe 5 to 10 years. It's like I want to. Now I'm trying to hire true employees that will get it. So that means I have to start pricing differently to meet with the demands of a better experience for the client.
I love that, Fallon. A couple quick questions for you. One, do you think everybody should have a percentage-based pricing model, or do you think that's just what's right for you?
I I still go back and forth on it, to be honest with you. I'm off It works the best just because clients are always going over their budget anywhere between 30 to 50%. So you're like,
Right.
eh. But I can also see it from the client side. It's like they really do. If I were the client, I would love just one flat number. Like I would love one flat number, and if I go over, then I pay. But it's the same thing. It's just worded differently, and sometimes you just have to word it a little differently. But that's why my contract was so important because I wanted to always be protected. No matter whether I did percentage or flat fee, I always have the caveat of if you exceed your budget, there is a percentage on that. Event management goes up, everything goes up. So you're either going to see it in a proposal or you're going to see it on the contract.
Do you feel like you learned, and I'll just give a quick shout out. I don't know if you know Brooke Keegan, but I did a podcast interview with her. Yeah,
Hey.
she's like, makes a really good case for the percentage based pricing model. And that kind of being like we're talking about, like the foundation, like if your pricing is wrong, you're gonna be swimming against the current
Yeah.
because, well, for so many reasons. For you, Fallon, was there a time when you feel like you weren't getting the pricing model right? And do you, if if you're comfortable, just kind of talk to me about what it's like if you have experience with that with the wrong pricing model and how important it is to fix that.
I think I think I'm still in a place where I'm trying to get the right pricing model just because my clientele was one way
Yeah,
previous and now my clientele has larger budgets. So
yeah,
in my opinion, it's like the flat fee does work with a certain clientele that has kind of a range of a budget just because it fits nicer in their budget. But once
yeah.
now I'm talking to clients that have over $300,000, over $500,000. Those are budgets where you're like, this is where you can actually do the percentage and it works for you. So I think
Right.
it's like there isn't a one size fits all. It really is based on, I think, based on the demographic of your client, whether you're flat fee or a percentage.
That makes sense. Yeah, really interesting. It's something I hear a lot of diverging opinions on, but there's one consistent takeaway, which is it's important. And yeah, I would just kind of chime in, just having talked to, I did we did a webinar with Tammy Ferrero back in the day, and she kind of talked about like there's flat fee, percentage, hybrid. I think the takeaway here is just know, and tell me if you see this differently, Fallon, but just know that pricing is foundational. And before you run out and scale up and all of that, you want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure you've got it right. So information is out there. People are available to kind of talk to about this if you feel like. And what you shouldn't do, from everything that I hear, and this resonates with me, is just look at like, well, what's the person, next
No.
door, in my market doing? That's not how you're going to match this with your goal and your vision and your financial strategy.
Mm-mm. The first time I started to really see myself making a better profit margin was definitely when I was doing, and I still do percentage as my main, but there are some clients who still are on a lower budget spectrum. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. If you're going to, it's like, I'll give you a flat fee if it works for you. But again, it's having that line item in your contract that makes sure you're always protected, because they always do go over budget, even when they say they don't.
Absolutely. Also, I feel like a lot of this is kind of coming out of that finance pillar.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that kind of, I mean, yeah, it's related but distinct is, and this is another controversial sort of topic. I've heard very divergent views on this, but whether and how to build a team. There's
Mm.
certainly a line of thought out there that's like, there's an allure that people get sucked into building a team and it can really backfire. And then there's the very conventional principled wisdom of you are the bottleneck in your business. You can't do all things well because each of us has our strengths. And if you're trying to do everything, you're going to work yourself ragged and you're not going to grow. What is your general sort of approach or view on the topic of team building, when, whether, and how to do it?
So I think that's one of the another lesson I learned this past year, because it definitely backfired. I hired too many people too quickly and it sucked out all
Yep.
of my revenue. And then I
Yep.
had to scale back and I was like, this isn't working. I was
Yep.
so ready to just leave the business. I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to talk to these clients anymore. I'm over this. Somebody else
Yep.
do it. And I wanted to escape,
Yep.
not realizing that I am still integral to the running of this business, period. There is no
Yep.
way I'm going to be able to walk away at this state. I will say what I'm doing now as my system and my foundation is creating better systems, creating workflows, creating ways that I can automate. I can use AI to do a lot of the things that are repetitious, really refining emails and the way I respond to them, having templates made, even how I communicate with clients. Now I don't email with clients. We use a system called Basecamp so that I can basically separate, you know, having a place that they go and the place that I have. But I think before you hire, it's really understanding all the systems and the processes that are necessary to run your business, because the moment you bring someone on, you think they're working for you, but you're still kind of working for them, because you're going to have to give them things, you have to onboard them, they're going to have questions, and you need to be prepared with the answers, but also they're not going to be as helpful unless your systems are already really cut and dry and they know how to just, it's kind of like the McDonald's model. You don't need anyone to think. You really just need someone to come in and know how to flip the burgers based on the sheet that you gave them to read.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really sobering like perspective, like an experienced perspective on, and you're not saying don't build a team. And
No.
obviously it's case by case. Yeah, if somebody's out there and they're like, I'm doing my 15 events a year, it's just me and I love what I'm doing and I'm great. Okay, great, awesome. But if somebody like, has ambitions of growing to a certain point and it's like, no, I'm going to need a team, but still you need to do that prudently. You need to have the systems in place before you start bringing people in to chaos, right?
Mm. Yeah, it's like you don't want it's like you're bringing over the cleaning lady and you're kinda like you're straightening up your house a little bit before they get there, like, it's just I don't want
Right,
them to thi
right,
it's
right.
also finding that right person who can potentially see in your chaos and help you put it together. Now, I had a lot of great people and great minds, but I wasn't able to use them effectively because I wasn't prepared. And it's like you really need to know exactly what you're seeking from that person, making those expectations explicitly clear. And hours. Are they working hourly? Are they working a flat monthly rate? Are you
Yeah,
going to pay them a salary? And I'm now at the place where
yeah.
I want to have a salary. I want to give them health insurance. I want to have 401ks. I'm trying to build a real business here. And that means I got to get a lot more things in order before that happens.
Yeah, well, it's funny when you have a team, there's this whole new dimension of work that you need to do, which is management.
And
And that's
leadership and yeah.
all the people how do you go about finding talent? Like when you've done it and done it right, Fallon, because you
Yeah.
alluded at the beginning of the interview to the fact that, as much as we're talking about like there's a way to go too fast and not have the right infrastructure when you're bringing on a team, but there's also a way to do it right where you have people on your team that are making you and your company better. Like when you found those great people, how have you done that?
The best place so far has been I used a company called Rock Solid, and they actually kind of tested me or quizzed me, if you will. They
Hmm.
identified the type of person I'm looking for based on questions I asked. And this is not
Oh,
like
wow.
a ad or anything, but I was picking people I liked and I was picking people that I thought could do it and people that were coming from other planners. But my personality style is interesting. And I needed a personality that wasn't as strong as mine. I needed a personality who was okay kind of being a second. So there's it's like you kind of need to hire an HR person to help you hire people because sometimes you don't know exactly who it is that you need on your ship. You think you know, but you don't need another you. And a lot of times we want someone that's just like us, works just at no, 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 no. You don't want another you because that would be terrible. You want someone that complements you. So, and it's really you got to. I would outsource that to a service that can help you find the people that are right for your company.
I love that, Fallon. And, this intersecting point also of systems and processes, which honestly is obviously like near and dear to my heart because I'm genius. In fact, I'm going to do a quick plug here. I usually do in the interviews, just to let people know if you're a wedding planner, you're out there working on these timelines. This is a critical workflow for you and your business. The timeline is the plan for the day. You're a planner, that's the plan. And I just want people to know go to timelinegenius.com. Just watch the short video on the homepage, and you'll see just how transformative it is. I mean, it really takes the pain out of doing timelines, lets you do it much more easily and efficiently, and in the process, lets you put forth a higher level of professionalism because you've got text reminders going out and web based collaboration. There's so many features that are in there. And I think I mentioned this in the pre interview, Fallon. I'd love to, yeah, just to kind of leave that with the concrete takeaway. Go to timelinegenius.com, folks. Start a free trial. Watch the video on the page. I think you'll be blown away. Um, this is just like a rare opportunity, Fallon, that I have somebody on the podcast that was one of that inner circle, group of people who in the very, very early fragile stages of Timeline Genius, when honestly I could have been talked out of doing that. I didn't know. I didn't
Mm.
even know what a timeline was when I started. If we had gone out to brunch and you'd said, Eddie, you and maybe a few other planners, like if you'd been like, this is like, nah, this isn't like, but you did say, no, you're like, this is a thing, like you should work on, like, can you tap back into your kind of mind and recall at that point and just kind of what was it that led you to take time to meet with me and to encourage me and to say, yeah, you should do this?
Well, I think that, I was like, there's nothing automated for what we need. And I was like, I'm doing the same thing so many times.
Yeah.
I wish there was something that I could just throw a few facts at it and it'd be like, and and you're like, yeah, that's it. Like you were like ahead
Yeah.
of Chat GPT. Like you were like that's what we wanted. And when you said it, I was like, now that would be dope. And that would be a game changer and take so much of a load off of our day-to-day tasks. Like, let's do it, just because timelines are so integral to what we do. And I spent so much time really like refining mine and really making every detail so specific. And it's like, but they're all the same thing, just sometimes at
Yeah.
different times. So I thank you. It's an amazing tool, and it's been so helpful to my business, period.
Do you ever like, I mean, I don't know how your mind works, like, but do you ever like have the thought like, because when you and I met, there was no company name. There was an idea for something that would solve the timeline problem, and like this is roughly how it could work, blah blah blah. But like there was no, timeline genius yet, no website. And do you ever like hear timeline genius talked about somewhere and just say,
Yep.
I remember
I
when that was
remember.
designed.
It was
Like,
funny
I have to
because
play the role in that. Like, anyway, go ahead.
when I was one of my actually team members from this past year, we were talking about something. She's like, "Yeah, I love using Timeline Genius," and I was like, "Wow, like this is really taking off. Like he did that. Like I remember when." And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you know how to use it because we're gonna use it."
Yeah,
So it's like it
yeah.
was. I was like, "Wow, he's a household name."
I'm so grateful, Fallon, for just the encouragement and I mean, it was just, yeah, to take that time and to give that feedback. It was so helpful. I still have it documented and it still rattles around in my brain. But anyway, I obviously am passionate about this notion of, systems and processes.
Yeah.
And, talk to me a little bit about this sort of pillar of your foundation. How do you approach like, having, and I love that McDonald's reference. I don't know if people have seen the movie The Founder, but where they're out there and it's all just like systematized. It's like Michael Gerber's Smith says, like, how do you approach, the systems and processes for your business and craft those?
Yeah, I think for at least the good first 8 years of my business, I was just like, I'm probably going to be doing this forever, right? This is just going to be me. But
Yep,
now every day I
yep,
have the perspective of someone else is going to have to do exactly what I'm doing the way I would like it to be done.
mhm,
Um, and the way to not
mhm,
get disappointed is to make your expectations clear, right? So I need to say,
got
hey,
it.
I use this type font. I like it when it's this size. I don't like actual black. I like gray. So I'm going through my day-to-day tasks, constantly being cognizant and mindful of, okay, if I just wrote this email, if I write it again, it now becomes a template like that. So now I'm going through my actions a little bit more granularly and specific. Like, why am I doing this like this? Okay, let's make a module for this. Let's make a workflow for this. Let's make this make sense. So I know it's going to take me some time. And now I'm at the place of like, okay, maybe I can get like someone from Upwork or Fiverr to help me just really get these
Mhm,
micro tasks down and build the workflow and build these little systems, and not little systems, but major systems that, because you want to refine them, you want to work them out, you want to get the kinks right. And they're not going to be perfect. I think that's something the word systems and processes kind of sometimes uh gets that mountain view in your head, like I got to get it perfect. No, 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 at least
right.
just get maybe an email workflow done. Maybe next quarter you're
Yeah.
focusing on like building this business is taking years. You're not trying to get it all done in a week. That will give you a depleted vibe. So every system, how does it work? How do you use it, from your email to your calendar to your CRMs to Dubsado, whatever it is that you need? Identify exactly the systems that work for you and how can you integrate them for success.
I love that, Fallon. And besides Timeline Genius, are there any other software tools out there? I mean, you mentioned Dubsado. Can you tell me some of the other critical sort of parts of your tech stack?
Yeah, I use ClickUp for my project management, and
We do
Basecamp.
too. ClickUp is
uh, ClickUp
amazing.
is dope. So
I finally
it's
got like my head around it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm still trying to like there, because now they've added some AI features, and they've also added Reclaim as an integration. So now I'm trying to
Yeah.
calendar stack using ClickUp to link to Reclaim, to link to my calendar, so that way every morning I wake up, I know exactly what needs to be done,
Mhm.
and then what I can outsource or delegate to someone else. Um,
Hmm.
I'm a mind map girl, so I also make a lot of mind maps, but I don't know if that's a tool that you need. Basecamp has been a game changer to communicating with clients. Dubsado's a little clunky because I have a lot of back and forth communication. So Basecamp has been a great way for me to hold my clients in a place that they're not in my email flooding my email box with questions and answers and all this back and forth, and all of their documents and planning details stay within Basecamp, which has been
Wow.
spectacular to use when communicating.
I hadn't thought of that. I used to use Basecamp in my first company, and it makes sense that you could hack that into a really good. So that's really interesting. Um, Really interesting. Yeah, I think the systems and processes point is just, it's really powerful because I think we can forget, Fallon, all of us as business owners, that our job is not just to say be a wedding planner or
Mm,
do the executing, but also to build to get the people and the processes in place to do the job in the most efficient and effective way. Like that's such a
yes.
critical component of what we need to do as
Yeah.
business owners. Um,
And
the other
toggle. I will say
toggle,
track. I
toggle,
mean, I
you're
think you
talking,
can track. Yeah, I was like,
yeah,
really track your time, because a lot of times we
yeah,
just do things and your day is gone and you're like, what did I do? It's like, no, 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 no. You should be spending your time really, really mindful on every client and not just
yeah.
giving one client like 5 hours of your day because you need to get this design deck done. If things are taking longer, in my opinion, taking longer than an hour and a half, they need to be outsourced to someone else.
It's funny. I had into me because when you're a lawyer, you track your time and every tenth of an hour because that is a lawyer's commodity at a firm. You're like, I bill my time. That's how the firm makes money. So that was kind of just instilled. And it's funny in Timeline Genius during the pandemic, we had people saying, "Oh, I need to show that I spent, how much time." Now, granted, this is kind of a weird issue. It's like when the world was ending, we thought, but they're like, like this client wants a refund. I want to show partial because I did this many hours.
Mm-hmm.
We built a time tracking tool and you don't even have to start and stop. A lot of people don't know. That's why I'm just going to call it out if people are using Timeline Genius. There's a time tracking interface where it automatically logs how much time you and your team members, it breaks it out. If you go make a sandwich, it stops running the meter. So I agree. Like, I love that quote by Ben Franklin. He's like, if you love life, don't squander time because that's what life is made of. Um, the One more point we've been through so much. This is exactly what I wanted it to be. We talked about goals, legal compliance, finances, hiring, pricing, systems and processes. The other bullet I had on my list is branding and marketing. And again, I know the caveat, we could talk for the next 2 hours about this, but give me again that high level sort of overview of like how you approach branding and marketing and why you said, when I was like, oh, how might you help? Like, well, we might think about revamping your branding and your marketing. That's part of your foundation. Talk to me a little bit about how you view branding and marketing.
Yeah, I think once you get a few years in your business, you identify a lot better who your client is. I think and off the onset, you're kind of like casting a wide net, like whoever wants to book me, book me. But eventually, you start to identify who your people are and the people you want to really work with consistently and want to spend a lot of time with, because you spend a lot of time with these folks. So branding to me is really kind of honing in on what that visual looks like to communicate to your ideal client. Your colors, your textures, the fonts, your mission statement, your principles, like who are you as a business and how are you getting it out to the world? And then going it a step further with the marketing, like who are you marketing to and why? How and which avenues are you marketing? And what ways do you want to enhance your marketing? From various things to trying to be featured more to maybe trying to get speaking engagements. Like there's so many ways to think of marketing outside of just the context of Instagram. It's like staying ahead of the game with understanding where your client might be, especially if you're going with a younger demographic and like everyone's moving to TikTok. But at the same time, Pinterest is now the word on the street of like that's where you need to start focusing your energy. So I think, yes, having a foundation of good general principles and content and branding, but at the same time, having a marketing strategy that is continually being like, for lack of better words, breathe new life into, if that's a statement. Don't be so stagnant and stuck with the same way of communicating to your client because they might be a different client sometimes, and they might be aging out and getting older. So I think continually re-envisioning who that client is and where they are might be something that has to take shape and evolve, and not be something that's just, this is who it is, done. So that's just a general takeaway.
I love that, Fallon. And I feel like, again, we're kind of operating at the high level here, and there's a lot of, granularity we could, get into if we had more time. But that is, for me, one of the like big things that I kind of had to learn in business, that
Hmm.
instinct, we're going to market to everybody. And if you're marketing everybody, you're marketing nobody. I know there's some people that say differently. I and people that listen to the podcast, like from where I sit, that is huge. And for some reason, it's counterintuitive because we're kind
Mm.
of like, but I don't want to let go of this revenue and these people that I could serve. No, 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 no. You niche down
Hmm.
till it hurts. You get really, really clear about a very precise and detailed ideal avatar. And it's not to say you're not going to get other people, but that's your composite, and that's who you need to be for. Courageously not foregoing some of these other people and just being like, this is who I'm for. It's from every whole phase of the customer journey, from getting their attention. If you're talking directly to somebody and speaking their language, you're getting their all the way to you book them, and they're more likely to send you referrals because they're
Hmm.
tailor made for you. So they're going to have a great experience. Like, did you ever step in the bear trap? Like, I may be like putting my experience on you. Have you ever stepped in the bear trap where you're not doing that and you're trying to talk to everybody? Have you ever gone down that path?
Yep. I think or even you're trying to talk to a client you think you want, and then you get them and you're like,
Right,
"Oh,
right.
no, I don't want this anymore." So it's
Yeah,
that you got to refine that. You're like, "I never want to do this again." Like, you're updating your contract 30 million times
totally.
after that. You're like, "No." And that's why I'm
Yeah.
like, it's going to be a little trial and error, because you might step in that bear trap a few too many times until you get it upside your
Yeah.
head. Like, you need a new market, bro. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's so core. It's like when you're in business, I believe that we're here, like business is this like kind of economic codification of like what we're really here to do in life, which is to serve
yeah.
others, right? To use our talents, our time, and our energy to make this world a better place, right? And
Yep.
planning weddings and events, you're doing that. Like you're giving joy and goodness into the world. But if you're going to be serving, yeah, you need to know like, who am I supposed to serve? Who am I trying to attract,
Mhm.
and who do I want to work with?
And don't let it always be
Fallon, there's
I think a lot of times we're also just focused on, I want the client who's gonna pay me the most. And that itself comes with its own level of stress. And it's like, sometimes in your business, you
yeah,
have to identify, do I really want to go for ultra luxury? Do I want to go for luxury? Do I like middle tier? Like, identify where is your home and where's your safe place, and where are the people you're really going to resonate with, and make that change that you're seeking to make. Because to be honest, I don't know if I want to do these multi-million dollar weddings. I feel like I would have a heart attack or like some health issue, but that's a lot of stress I don't know if I really want to take on. So I'm okay sticking where I'm at. And I think a lot of times we think of success as, I got to do the big tent wedding. I got to do the multi-day in the middle of Montana. Like, sure, but make sure that that's your goal and not a goal that you're seeking because it's something that social is putting in front of you.
yeah, I love that, Fallon. It really brings it back full circle to kind of where we started with, you know, thinking, what are your goals? Not the goals that you see based on what you see other people doing on social
Mhm.
media, but what you want to get out of your profession. Um, Let me ask you this, Fallon, and this is can't believe we covered as much ground as we did. There's one question I always ask of people on this podcast, which is, if you could give one piece of advice based on all that you know, all you've learned in your years of industry experience, and even before that, that would help them as much as possible in their business, what would that one piece of advice be?
No journey is the same. No success is the same, and everything is going to look different. You have to run your race, you have to go at your pace, and it's going to look very different than everyone else's, and you have to take it slow. Patience is it.
Why is that your number one piece of advice? I love that.
Just because I've battled this for so long in my career, trying to be what other people wanted me to be, trying to say the right thing, look the right way, and there's a lack of identity. You lose yourself, you get exhausted, and that's when you find burnout because you're not being who you are and doing what you want to do. You're doing what you think you should be doing. And the moment you actually find your true north, everything becomes so much easier. And it's like, it's a breath of fresh air. And you're like, this actually makes sense. Things are in alignment and it feels good. Not to say you're not going to have any challenges, but the lessons that you learn from them, those are your lessons and your lessons alone. And everyone's lessons are going to be different. They might be similar, but we have to walk this race and live this thing called life as our own. We can't live it like someone else because that's a disservice to the one who made us. So you got to live your life, do it like you want to do it, because there are people that are out there looking to work with you, not the other person.
That is a beautiful place to leave it, Fallon. I love that. If people want to connect with you, get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, you can slide in my DMs at Fallon Carter Events and shoot me an email, info at Fallon Carter Events. I would love to talk with you, love to do a consult call, whatever you'd like. Let's connect.
Well, Fallon, on behalf of our Timeline Genius community, which you have very much played a role in helping to bring into this world, and all of our podcast listeners, I just want to say thank you for taking time to be here, for doing what you're doing in our industry.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Eddie. Thanks for having me on. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Have a good day.